Hey, Ghost Machine fans, this one's for you.
Welcome to the Ghost Machine Fans Podcast, episode 49. It's time to get springtime spooky as we return to the horrorverse. That's right, we're going to learn about Cranky's high score and meet the matinee monster in another deep dive down Hyde Street. I'm Snoggle, also known as Becky, and as usual, I'm joined by my partner in crime, Nick. Are you scared?
Yeah, terrified. Now I'm ecstatic to be back in the horrorverse. It's not springtime spooky though, because right now in Cincinnati it's like 26 degrees out or something. Like it's below freezing, and
Kind of rude, right?
Yeah, man. And it's March. Just madness. It's just madness. So
What did the gopher say? Or groundhog?
the groundhog.
And they're like the same creature.
I think that the groundhog said more winter, if I recall, but I'm not sure.
Well,
Poxitani
technically,
yeah.
the first day of spring isn't till March 20th.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess it can remain absolutely frigid, but still, it's not usually this cold. P.S. Poxitani Phil now must make an appearance in at least the Redcoat timeline at some point. Like just a panel. Just give me one panel for.
Or how funny would it be to like have a whole entire like Groundhog's Day?
Yeah. Right.
Comic.
Like, or just like 3 panels where it's like, oh,
Mhm.
they're doing it again.
Where he-
Really?
He keeps on trying to change his outcome like over and over again, and he just dies on almost every single page.
Yeah, because of some founding father's magical curse that he breaks, but it'll last a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am excited to talk about Hyde Street. You know, there's so many darn titles coming out right now that it's difficult to keep up with it all, which is a really great feeling to have. But we do have a fun shout out this time. This is to a friend of ours on Instagram, as is often the case. The account is Mini Plastic Multiverse. It's a cool account for like action figure photography and stuff like that. And recently they put a Junkyard Joe figure in like this cool toy soldiery looking old school G.I. Joe looking box, like real old, like the 12-inch ones from back in the day. And it was Junkyard Joe in that, but then they also made this really neat reel after the fact that showing how the picture was made. It was really, really cool. Very, very cool composition. So shout out to Mini Plastic Multiverse. Literally sounds exactly the way you would spell that. No spaces, underscores, hyphens, or any of that stuff. If you want to check them out on Instagram, do that.
Do it.
But enough about little plastic characters, because Snoggle is in the newsroom.
Today is Wednesday, March 5th, which also happens to be the release date for Hyde Street number 4. You can listen to us dive into number 3 and jump right into number 4, which is essentially super perfect. Also out today is the Redcoat Volume 1 trade paperback. There is both a direct market edition and mainstream edition of that trade. So a fun day for Ghost Machine all around.
Things are starting to heat up in here. You've got another, so we're doing a deep dive into Hyde Street 3. Hyde Street 4 comes out today, so you can just get all of your spooky that you want. And then these Redcoat books, so there are 2 covers, right? Like there's one that you can get if you're direct market, aka a local comic book shop, or then there's the mainstream one, which is like what you can get off of Amazon, or I believe like a Barnes and Noble type of situation. So those are pretty neat. I've seen those in other countries. Like there's a French edition of that that's like hardcover.
Oui.
Yeah,
Sorry.
well, in other countries, graphic novel collections seem to be a little bit more prominent. I mean, it's very popular here, but like it's a big thing in a few other countries too. So hey, that's pretty cool. Lots of books coming out. I just got to keep up with them all, man. There's only
Mm-hmm.
52 weeks in the year, you know? But that's the good news. So now it's time for us to run down the 3 fabulous covers for this book with which we are going to deep dive into today, which is Hyde Street number 3. Have you seen all 3 of those, honey? One of them got a lot of attention in the media.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
If I was to guess, it would be the one where Santa Claus and several characters from Christmas are decapitated all over the place.
Christmas decapitation. Exactly.
Deck the tree with guts of glory. La 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 la. La 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 la.
Well, and so...
Will Santa die in this story?
It's Mr. X-Ray standing in front of the Christmas tree. Santa's head is on top of one of the presents. He's holding a cleaver that looks like he's responsible for the decapitation of Santa. There are multiple elven decapitated heads on the mantle. There's a reindeer decapitated head at the top of the tree, and it looks as though the matinee monster is right behind that reindeer with his hand on the reindeer, which is an interesting thing.
That's a nice touch.
It's interesting, though. I wonder about that.
I particularly like the guts all over the tree.
The guts, the rib cage, that garland that is a rib cage. Yeah. There's a lot going on there.
I think that was a beautiful touch.
Yeah, so that's a pretty Comics Code not approved cover. That's for sure. A lot of people remember the Comics Code. It's not a thing anymore, I don't think. But it was when we were kids. When I was Bruce's age, it was. And it's pretty intense. It's pretty rock and roll, pretty horror. And it's by Yvonne Rice and Danny Mickey. Danny did the inks, which you can tell, it's pretty distinct when you see his work. And Brad Anderson did the colors on this bad boy. It's, I think this is a cover we'll remember forever. We even did a little cosplay goofy thing about this cover. Bruce did in front of the Christmas tree in the fireplace on Instagram like 2 months ago.
That was great.
Yeah.
Next time, if they ever do a cover like this, you can just put decapitated Becky heads all over the mantle.
Oh my goodness.
Why not? I could be Mrs. Claus. Or an elf.
Or an elf, and we could give you a little elf hat at least. So it wouldn't just be like Becky heads.
Yeah, gore.
Gore. Gore. G-O-R-E, gore. All right. How about cover B? Moving on.
Cover B. Happy birthday to Frankie.
Yeah, that was funny. I think Jeff Johns had a birthday recently, and somebody posted this as the birthday picture, which was pretty appropriate. But this one's by Steve Lieber. He did the pencils and the inks, and someone named Wes Dzioba, that's D-Z-I-O-B-A, did the colors. And it's Pranky blowing out birthday candles. And at first it looks like just that, but then the flames are going at humanoid looking somethings because you can see they're burning up in the flames.
I think that's exactly what Pranky would want for his birthday.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of Pranky love in the covers of this one. The third cover, what did you think of the third cover? Did you see who did that one?
Yeah, I believe it is, and I might be saying this wrong, but German or Herman Peralta. Frankie holding a little knife behind his back.
Yeah, it looks really... I know he's always wearing a scouting outfit, but you can really see the scout details in that one. And that was pretty neat. And it's nice how you can see that it's hidden by just it poking out from behind the back, but it's very foreboding. So that was cool. Cool, man. he's done several cool covers that are Ghost Machine of late.
Mm-hmm.
Good to see some more of that. But those are the covers for this fantastic comic book in the Ghost Machine horror-verse that is Hyde Street. So if you haven't read this comic, you should go out to your local comic book shop and pick one of those, read it, and come back. Because right now, this is your official spoiler pause for Hyde Street number 3. All right. Snog L, can you give us a proper creator roll call for this terrifying comic book?
I can, since you've been so nice. Our creators are none other than Yvonne Reese and Jeff Johns. Our inker is Danny Miki, colorist, none other than Brad Anderson, and our king of letters, Rob Lee. He's a busy, busy man.
Hey man, Brad.
Yeah.
And all them colors. I guess there's still more to it because even Rob does the one that John Calise and Francis Manipul color too. One man can only letter so much.
Not when you're the king of letters.
I guess you're right. When you're right, you're right. All right.
And letter it all.
Mm-hmm. So let's deep dive into this terrifying comic book.
Let's.
I wanted to say when I saw that cover, I was like, man, they're really swinging for the fences on this. Are they really going to try to tell us that Santa did something bad, right? Like, I was like, is it really still? Oh, that's my question.
I not for 1 second thought that they were going to kill Santa, but I thought somehow, some way we would get a Krampus type individual. Not for a single second did I think real Santa Claus was involved. But maybe that's because one of my favorite holiday movies is like Bad Santa. You know, not all Santas are good. So I'm like, it's some sort of something of that sort. And then I hoped for Krampus because what a wonderful tradition.
They make it pretty abundantly clear when they start the comic book off that the Santa that we have seen is in fact someone else who's not very nice. Right? And it is super. I like the intro, the foreboding, the panels. There's a little bit of narration, but really we can see what's happening even without that. When we see that hand sticking down through the chimney and money with it, it's like, well, that's not Santa. It just looks like there's something mischievous going on. And then his landing in and of itself is like, oh, yeah, it doesn't look like he really knows what he's doing there.
Oh, yeah, he lands. We get on a night like no other, when the world passes to reflect its better nature. ... I mean, pretty much knew when we turned the page and we got the lovely letters.
It gets kind of deep. This holiday, it isn't just gifts and laughter at stake. It's belief itself, as delicate as glass ornaments hanging on a teetering tree. So the implication here, right? Because the one thing that I wanted to ask you, and anyone who would be interested in writing us at ghostmachinefans@gmail.com, is what does it take to put somebody on Hyde Street? Like, what's the threshold of bad deeds or whatever?
Well, I'm pretty certain that being the actual Grinch of Christmas gets you pretty high up the list.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think what this is saying with that particular narrative panel about belief itself being at stake is saying that this bad guy that is like thief guy was definitely a bad guy, but the thing that got him to over into the Hyde Street zone where it's like, okay, when he leaves this house, he's going to see Hyde Street and Frankie's going to see him, is that he told the little boy that Santa wasn't real. Frankie later in the issue, when he's talking to X-Ray, he mentions like how this jerk was just going to really ruin Christmas for this poor kid. Like he said stuff like that, some empathetic stuff. And so it's interesting that the narrator makes the point that tonight the leaf itself is as delicate as glass, ornaments hanging on a teetering tree. Like there's no other aspect of this other than what he's about to do to that child that makes the child bawl his eyes out, etc. And then the very next thing that happens to him is he ends up on Hyde Street with Cranky sitting in front of a snowman who also has like a big old knife stuck in him. I just noticed that detail. It's like, I'll put my knife here until I need it.
I do love the panel as he's telling the kid there's no such thing as Santa Claus. The look on his face is like pure evil. There's no such thing as Santa Claus, kid.
Yeah, as he pulls his beard down, his fake beard.
Like, he could have at least went the Grinch route and be like, hey, no, I'm taking all these presents and giving them to others who don't have presents, or lie or something. He just went straight for the jugular.
See, the Grinch wasn't bad enough to end up on Hyde Street. That's what I want to know. I want like the bell curve, the whatever of this is when you end up in Hyde Street. I'm just putting it out there. I want to know about that mechanic. You know, I imagine that in like the Jeff Johns Dungeon Master Guide to Hyde Street, it has like an explanation there. I really thought that when you get just this super cool, picturesque Christmas street that leads you to, it's snowing, and it leads you to X-Ray's office. And there's just so much like, take me there with the camera and the journey and like.
That's very pretty, too,
very cool.
By the way. Like, that, you know, we all know how I love how Brad makes lights look like lights.
Yeah.
Through color alone. Very good. Picturesque, old-timey as well. Like, I feel like anytime we enter into his world and into his domain, you get kind of that coffee-stained paper type of feel.
Yeah, that ad era camera feel. The camera like pans over his desk that has a page showing his many scams, one of which is the Piranha People.
Which I love. When we turn the page, we get to like see them.
We do, and it's just so very comic book to me. Because this could be in a movie, and it would look cool, but when you see the way that Ivan has drawn these creatures, which he also did a story, an Aquaman book, where there's something called the Trench, where these evil underwater sea creatures, and these are like kind of like those but cooler, and they are really menacing up close, and then you get this, the camera turns to their back and they look outside and it's X-Ray's head because they're in fact like sea monkeys or whatever, like they really are piranha people, because as we learn from the bio later in the book, the room is filled with the real versions of a lot of his scams, and a lot of that's part of the shtick. But what did you think of how he feeds them a human finger?
No, I love it. I also like when you stand back, like even with all of his, it's like, is he good? Is he bad? Because he set up a Christmas tree in his house.
Oh yeah, who doesn't do that? Yeah. You think villains don't have Christmas trees?
I mean, I don't know what is to celebrate for him. What does he put under said tree?
I mean, what do you do? What do you to that point though? When you're not damning souls. You know what I mean? Like, what do you do in Hyde Street? Like, they're competing for the next one they can snag. And then Frankie shows up at his door.
Merry Christmas! Looking kind of cute and innocent, to be honest. Which means you know he's up to no good.
Yeah. It does not have any sense of his usual, like, evil eyes, or I'm coming to get you, or I have a scheme. It's, well, he doesn't tell him at first why he's there. He just starts giving him a hard time of like, why did you choose to live here? And he makes a point of saying that the scorekeeper asks people in their position what their dwelling of choice is. And that makes sense because Frankie had that really cool treehouse. But that also would mean that X-Ray chose to be like surrounded by this stuff or for whatever reason. Then we find out that in fact he's there, like at the end of the last one, they were chatting with the scorekeeper. Frankie was talking to the scorekeeper about how, like, oh, I got so many points, but I don't want to leave. Why would I want to leave? And he's essentially like hogging all the people so other people can't, or whatever. And so he's there to help X-Ray know how he does it more effectively, I guess, is what he's essentially saying.
Yeah.
This is also where he mentions, like, things that imply he has some sort of morality or some sort of moral compass. He mentions that the guy that is doing the bad stuff, he says he robbed a bunch of houses, spoiled Christmas for some poor kid, gave a little girl's grandpa a heart attack, and some other things too. And in all those cases, he's like talking negatively about the people that did the bad things.
Yeah, but have you noticed he's mostly hates when people do bad things to kids?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, definitely.
So I think he has somewhat of a moral compass, but it's mostly like, you know, there's a smidgen of empathy there because bad things happen to him.
And then we do get one detail clarified that this was a question earlier in the series. People wanted to know, I think we actually spoke to Mike Schwartz about this on the first issue episode. When X-Ray, his daughter, runs away because he's like, nah, I want to talk to you. And then he decides to go follow her. And he pops out the building. And we're like, is he on Hyde Street now? Like, was that his act? His damning act or whatever? And then we see on the street is Pranky. We were like, does that mean he's on Hyde Street now and he's encountering Pranky for the first time? Or it's just a vision or what? No, because Pranky very clearly states here that he remembers the day that X-Ray stepped on Hyde Street and he was the one that damned him, which is pretty interesting. That's a wrinkle that we didn't have. It is one of those things. That was the day. And we learn a little bit more in detail about that in the bio. But that picture that they're taking a look at, that's his daughter. And he's like, yeah, I remember that. That was what you did. To me, like when that evil Santa guy or the robber said that to that kid, that was like his thing that pushed it over. And Xavier Ray, his thing was that he turned his daughter away or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's what turned him down that way. And I do think, I don't want to skip ahead, but I do think that in the bio for him, it addresses what happens there when somebody becomes damned in terms of if they become a resident or a victim, like Yvonne talked to us about months ago.
Well, don't jump ahead, dear.
No, I wouldn't do that. I'm not doing it. No, I'm not doing that.
You were close.
I was. So, here's the question, though.
So, Frankie's manipulating him, by the way. You'll never find out what happened to her until you're free. And he doesn't care.
He doesn't, and he must only be doing that because he knows that's what the scorekeeper wants, because he doesn't really want any of them to get free. He wants to hog them all. Mm-hmm. But they're walking out of there. They're going to do this thing that he's going to teach him. Where does the naughty list come from? What is this?
I don't know. It's from the scorekeeper. So, he's just talking about, I that would be my guess. It doesn't say, but he's like, look at all these names. And it just keeps on getting longer. And one of the things Mr. X-Ray says is like, no, the population's tripled since you first came here.
There's a lot of world building in these 4 panels of them talking about this naughty list that he just seems to pull out of his pocket. And it's very Santa naughty list-esque. But it's like, where did this thing come through? But that aside, you're right. He makes the point of saying that about the population, and Pranky's like, so what? You're saying the world's getting bigger, not badder. And then he's like, and then X-Ray clarifies it. one bad choice is all it takes to end up on Hyde Street, and everyone's made at least one bad choice in life. But Pranky's like, yeah, but everybody's not here.
Do you think that Pranky actually knows the real reason people get drawn to Hyde Street?
Well,
But he's not going to share with them yet?
I think it's important to remember that Pranky is not really a young boy. At this point, he's decades old. Well, because what he says is he's like, you see, I figured out the real reason people get drawn to Hyde Street, but I'm not telling you, not yet. And so, obviously, he still has childlike tendencies. He lives in a treehouse. He's a prankster, all those things. But he's been here in this realm for a while. And so, to me, that means he would like learn things and pick up things. And when he says that, I don't know whether or not what he thinks he knows is right. I think he definitely thinks he knows what it is. And that to me was where a moment where it's like, man, that's a pretty he's a pretty powerful magical being in this realm at this point, for all intents and purposes, with how versatile we see him become with what he does in the next several pages.
I like how it's, and telling a kid there's no Santa Claus. Let's show him otherwise. I'm like, well, that sounds a smidgen evil. And then we get this beautiful scene of a beautiful house all decorated for Christmas.
Clark Griswold would be pleased.
Did you notice when we turned the page and, fake Santa said, I've hit the jackpot. Do you see what's in Pranky's stocking?
Yeah, I did. That was a good one. What is it?
It is a little Junkyard Joe.
A little Junkyard Joe. He's just sitting right there.
With a little rifle.
And it's kind of funny, even though obviously he's saying like, I hit the jackpot because it's a nice house. The only thing you can really see in the foreground is that Junkyard Joe. So it is kind of implying that that's why he hit the jackpot. And then, in Santa's defense, that Mezco figure is expensive.
100%.
But then it gets crazy. And this is where I was like, yeah, there's some magical mischievous powers that they get when they become residents or whatever of Hyde Street, like the two of these guys are, meaning X-Ray and Pranky. But we don't really see X-Ray for several panels. But right away, Pranky's dressed up like an elf. He basically, what's going to happen to damn the guy is he's going to make it like he's going to treat him like he really is Santa and make him go up the chimney and like see what else he can do to him, right?
Yeah, I think it's really funny. He's like legitimately pretending to be an elf. He said, I'm no kid, I'm Pip, your number one elf from the North Pole. Duh.
And so is the reason we see this kind of like the siren sounds out the window. The door gets kicked in by somebody with a big black boot on. And then we see X-Ray next to Pranky in this like SWAT outfit wielding a ray gun. And then we don't have any more sirens. So it looked like that was really just him coming.
It's a SWAT uniform. I think it's supposed to just be fun. And it shows a little bit of Mr. X-Ray's sarcasm. A bit theatrical, don't you think?
Yes. I like his ray gun either way. Like 1960s Mars Attacks ray gun. And it just gets kind of crazier for the Santa guy. Some really cool letters from Rob as the fire shoots Santa out of essentially the chimney somehow. And it gets super crazy because right up there, Pranky's got a sleigh and reindeer and the whole shebang. And evil Santa's doesn't necessarily seem to be batting much of an eye about it. Like
he's like, this is real? And it is funny, Pranky, as real as your rap sheet, hop in, big guy. And then again, I feel like we're getting a little bit of comic relief from Mr. X-Ray, who goes, this is absurd.
That's very funny. And I did like the names of the reindeer. Disaster, danger, mayhem, crucifixion, carnage, chaos, doom, and affliction. And then that's where we first see And essentially, I guess here, because it's just like the sound, which is
Mm-hmm.
the back of the head of the matinee monster. So there's another cool thing about a comic. Like I didn't really notice him looking down at them in that perspective until the second time I read this, because I know what's on the next page and so on. And so now it's like, oh, cool. He noticed them going by or whatever. He was hanging out up there. And so then there's brief back and forth with Evil Santa and essentially X-Ray getting booted off the
I love the
play.
artwork here because you can tell, like, Mr. Oxford at the bottom of this page is upside down, and he goes, "Now hold on."
Yeah. And
Yeah.
he falls out of the sleigh.
But that was like a decision. So it's like Pranky put him in another position to harm somebody, basically. And he falls with a pretty big bang. I mean, obviously, we know he can't die on Hyde Street, but.
Well, I don't know that we have seen that occur prior to this. So I don't think one of the many world building questions that people have is like their powers and what they can do and whatnot, especially the residents. And this answers a few of those questions because the way that he falls is very like, you clearly see that he's drawn in a way that indicates many bones cracking and what clearly would be normally death for a normal person.
Yeah. I mean,
person.
there's blood. I do think it's really cool, too. So, one, we have figured out that they can't die. And two, it seems like Pranky can kind of be in two places at once because he's up there in the sleigh with the one guy. And then he's also like kind of embodying the snowman at the same time, which is quite horrifying.
Yeah, he is, because as X-Ray stands up, his body slowly puts itself back together again, and we get all these K-R-A-K-A-K sounds from Rob that are just like, oh gosh. And though, right, what you're saying is, Pranky's then in the snowman right next to where he fell, chatting with him about like kind of like a mini monologue of saying, this is why you do this, and this is how you damn them, and then you trick them to damn themselves. They do it.
Give them a choice to make, and once they make the wrong choice, they're right. And he also has, obviously, he's seen it enough times where he's like, put a fork in the road and they always take the one with the spikes. Like every time I've given people bad choices, they always go for the bad thing.
But unexpectedly, very unexpectedly for me, and like total ton of detail in here, but like, I think this is probably coolest page. This huge splash page of the matinee monster, Robber Santa, and Pranky is like the coolest page I've seen in this entire series whatsoever. And there's a couple of things to note, Ghost Machine fans. As he's going through them, Pranky has lost his magic for a moment. Because if you see Pranky, he's like in his normal outfit, and there's like blue, like residue coming off his head, like, oh, it's fading. But also, the reindeer and the sleigh has been broken a bunch and physically destroyed, but the reindeer are like dematerializing. So like, either the matinee monster breaking the sleigh caused the magic to all dissipate, or like him doing that also nullifies some of it, whatever. Incredible artwork, incredible ink, incredible colors. Holy cow. Every present is coming apart in its own individual way. And you're like, why did this giant Frankensteinian looking sort of kind of monster end up here and doing this? You know, like, woo, did not see that coming.
Yeah, and he's like obviously horrifying looking. Muscle exposed, crazy hands, staples across his stomach. As he's tumbling down, his pants aren't buttoned, by the way. Small detail.
Yeah, true.
You know, and then they land on the street and he picks up. Okay, so this is like, obviously the story is continuing to arc, but he picks up appears a memory orb, or I don't know what do you think that is, where he goes, I'm so sorry, Sam. But it doesn't seem like he's actually, well, I mean, I don't know.
Here's what I see happening. So yeah, he knocks over Robert Santa amongst the baubles that come out of the boxes that were in the bag of stolen stuff. There's like this crystal orb looking thing, like an ornament maybe or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he holds it up and he looks in it, and then we get this scene comparing another scene. And the first scene on the left is the robber when the robber is a kid, and it's his family saying they didn't have money for Christmas. So obviously, since they didn't have money for Christmas as a kid, it made him think Santa wasn't real. You know, it ruined Christmas for him. Then on the right side, we see the child from earlier that night that this particular robber said something of that nature too. And this is the bauble that the matinee monster is holding in his hand. It appears that it's almost like the two things balanced each other out, is my theory, or whatever.
Or I think it just made him realize why, like, it's two memories, right? So
he's acknowledging his fault, and then
and he says, "I'm sorry."
I see.
And Frankie's infuriated. Stop! This delivery is mine. And you just see like the person, Sam, fake Santa Claus, say, "I'm sorry," and basically that saved him because he said he was sorry.
In the sense that he like evaporates Jedi style or whatever. And then Pranky, it literally says, how dare you save him? He was on the naughty list. He's a repeat offender. Hey, hey. And then the monster's like just going away and jumps far, far away like a Hulk jump.
Mm-hmm.
And it is like, well, that's weird. And I thought I remembered him having like a really low score when we first saw the scoreboard in the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. It on the bottom, there's this next, the macabre myth of the matinee monster is like the cool preview thing. But it shows a little screenshot of the scoreboard or the delivery board. And it says matinee monster 0, Pranky 18,293. So we do know for a fact that when Frankie says saved him, they A, know what that guy does, and B, it does not get anybody a point.
Yeah.
So
he made it so he wasn't damned. Yeah. I mean, I think it's literally comes down to like actually feeling sorry.
I guess so, but it's interesting, a creature like him in a realm like this that's seeking out atonement from those who have done the wrong thing or whatever, you know, and it's just like, And I really like the preview page. Meet the matinee monster. His tragic story will haunt you. Pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like old school. Oh, it looks like it's a it says wax museum on the on the box that he came in. So maybe there'll be some stuff related to that.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
There were a few things in the bio about Mr. X-Ray real quick. That's a cool one. One thing it says is that the residents are chosen. So you get damned, and you either end up just damned and become a victim and bad stuff happens, or you get damned and then you become chosen to be a resident. And so Pranky and X-Ray are those.
Okay. Because, like, he was really mean to Judy, right? It said, but as Judy fled in tears, a strange sensation crept into Freddie's chest, guilt. And he immediately ran after her. I find it interesting that he wasn't able to, like, rectify that and was instead immediately put onto Hyde Street. And I think Frankie kind of has something to do with that, maybe? I don't know. How did Frankie ensnare Freddie, you know?
That's what I'm saying. I think there's like a threshold. And once the person's bad karma meter hits it, then it's like at any moment they could stumble down Hyde Street.
Mm.
I don't know. But the one thing it says about the scorekeeper is that he chooses them for his own enigmatic reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still like a lot of unclear.
To find out.
Yeah. And that's cool to me. Like I don't really want like all this laid out in the guide 3 issues into it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I really like it.
Yeah, build the mystery for much longer, honestly.
Yeah. And it does emphasize that, again, that Pranky was the one that ensnared X-Ray. So that's an interesting dynamic. Loved Hyde Street 3. Ready to talk about an interesting listener mail.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good one. A good one. You want to read it?
Sure.
All right, do it.
This week's message comes from JW52, who asks, you can have a tasty beverage of any kind with any Ghost Machine character. What do you drink? What do they drink? And what do you talk about? What are your thoughts?
I'm torn between 2. One is Simon, because, like, preferably before the Unknown War, because I don't think I'd want to actually live in a post-apocalyptic world. I assume he would be drinking beer, and I would be drinking coffee, because I don't drink alcohol. And I would want to talk to him about what he feels the most valuable lesson that he's learned about how to make the most out of life is. Or I would have a cup of coffee, and I would think if Roland Rockefeller was going to have coffee with me, that he would have like a triple espresso or 2, and I would have like a normal coffee. And I would want to know about like the future or time travel, or I would want to probably convince him to like take me somewhere in time for fun. That's what I would want to talk to him about. What about you?
I do think it would be nice to sit down and just have some delicious milkshakes with Nate and literally just talk about books. But it would have to be milkshakes because I can't really see him as a beer type of guy. And I think he would be very excited to have a milkshake because I'm not certain it's easy to have milkshakes in the world that they live in.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think that sounds really fun. Or I would drink beer with Simon and just chit chat about the dumb stuff he's said and crazy stuff he's seen. Because I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, you could ask him to tell you every event in history that history has like miswritten on purpose and what really and like, because he probably doesn't know them all, but he probably would know a lot of them.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty neat. I have one to add, and that is that I would have coffee, and I think he would have tea with the Adjudicator from Hornsby and Halo, and we would discuss the meaning of life and existence. That's a very cool character. You know, talk
the meaning of life and existence.
The blue space guy. Oh, yeah, the blue guy. The space guy. You know? I think he would drink tea, maybe. Or like, I don't know.
Or you could drink the blood of your enemies with Pranky.
Yeah, like, where's it good?
Just kidding.
I'd be like, yeah, Pranky and I are going to drink whatever Pranky wants, and we're going to talk about how I get the hell out of here. Like, you know, because that would mean I would be in a place I don't want to be.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. You'd be like, oh no.
No good. No good.
Oh, no.
Well, maybe the Northerner. Just so I could talk to him about what it was like to have 7 cameo appearances before you actually were in.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great question from JW52. And if you would like to send us a fantastic mail, you can do that at ghostmachinefans@gmail.com. You can also check out all of our other content at www.ghostmachinefans.com, where you'll find our wiki, our Instagram, links to our friends on Facebook, the Ghost Machine Comics fan Facebook page. Also, make sure to check out the Reddit. There's been a lot of awesome conversation going on over there of late. Also, we've got our Twitter and our Blue Sky manned by Cameron Gill out there in the UK. And there's a Pinterest too, so do that.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight on the Ghost Machine Fans Podcast.
Podcast.